was just curious about the process of how you find these people and their stories. It sounds like you work with a lot of different organizations.
That's a great question, because that is really the foundation of all of this work, is this relationship building. I really, I didn't make art for about 15 years, and I came back to art through my relationships with people in social justice movements by just making little postcards with Miss Major that were not great pieces of art, but they were to send to all the trans girls in prison that they write to, and to make art for their newsletter. And through that, through just showing up and showing up and showing up and having a lifelong commitment to trans justice and racial justice, this is how, you build your relationships.
In Oakland, working in social justice organizations, I know that there's a lot of utility in creating progressive arts to fuel movement, but there are lots of young people who love to draw, who love to create art. Are there any cool organizations out there that prepare kids for the powerful movement generating art creation that you do and other artists like you?
That's such a good question. I would love to know. So if anyone here knows, please
Let me know.
Share it. I mean, I feel like I'm still learning about all the people doing this kind of work. I mean, I had the people in Oakland who were my possibility models, folks from Culture Strike, Faviana, Melanie Cervantes, Emery Douglas, all these folks we know who are incredible. And but I mean, I know about Destiny Arts. I know about Culture Strike. I know about Youth Speaks. I'm sure there's many more I don't know.
When you talk about working in relationship with your subjects, I really like that line from Movement Generation, that like the relationship is fundamental. What does that look like in process of like, in terms of like when you're collaborating with your subjects in a way that is like really collaboration and not exploitation or something like that? Like, what are some practices and intentions you bring into that being a relation?
Well, I guess I definitely think of the people I work with as co-creators and not as subjects. There's so much. I mean, I could like really speak at that fucked up night about so many things that I learned. That would be a different talk. I think the main thing is trying to cultivate humility and being ready to totally change the project, not being attached to my own vision, not thinking that I ever have the answer or know what's best, respecting my own vision, but that it's not necessarily the way that things need to turn out. And that's actually something I learned from being a working graphic designer, of just not being attached to the final outcome, doing a million drafts for the client. Maybe some of you can relate to. You know, there definitely were times when I had to let go of what had been my fundamental vision for this project. And there are things that if I did it again, I would do totally differently. And most of those things have to do with going even slower and talking to more people. But, you know, it's always a balance between ever getting anything done and having endless conversations. So, yeah.
I run a local nonprofit that works in the food system space and helping humanize what our farmers do, our food suppliers do, like also a very hidden part of our society. And I want to work with more artists on amplifying that. So I'm wondering, in your process and the artists you work with, how do you support yourself? Are there organizations that support you guys to do this kind of different work? How do we get more artists involved?
As I said, I worked as a graphic designer for about 10 years. Some of these projects, like Trans Life and Liberation Art Series, we actually did a Kickstarter and we raised $15,000 or more. But actually all of that money went, I didn't I didn't pay myself from that money. It was important to me to have the project be centered on cultural reparations and building cultural equity and making sure that the trans people of color in the project got paid. I now get paid through my position at Forward Together, which is so amazing, and that's also after 10 years of working with them and building a relationship with them. So I think, you know, these are all, I think, very rare things. As I said, my models are, you know, just again to shout out Culture Strike and the way that they always advocate for artists to get paid. And I believe in that very strongly, and not just for my own well-being, but in solidarity. And I think that more and more organizations I've seen shift to valuing creative work and not just graphic design, valuing artwork and just setting aside actual budget for that. And Forward Together is incredible at that and has, I could say, so much about how their support changed how I saw myself as an artist, what it meant to actually have an organization pay me a real living wage and pay other artists that and be publicly honored and recognized for our contributions. Like, I didn't even realize that I was devaluing my own work in my head until I had that experience. So yes, there's a lot of creative fundraising involved, hustling, and you know, but I think it's a process.
As we're moving forward as a society, and behold all the weight that comes with this, I'm wondering, for you personally, how do you take care of yourself?
Do I take care of myself? Coffee. You know, I guess what I want, there's all kinds of things about, I mean, I definitely have learned from, you know, some of my elders who burnt out doing social justice work. It's like, for all of us, it's a constant struggle to just, you know, go really hard in this moment and also, you know, exercise, do all the things that make us able to do the work. But actually, there's something about making art that I think that's kind of the most important thing to me, has been healing my relationship with creativity. That makes everything else possible, and that the work actually sustains me. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be able to do this work, just to be able to draw, to be able to create things with incredible people that even makes one person feel slightly better is such an honor. So that is just feeds me so much.
As someone who like personally identifies as like cisgender, are there things that we can do other than like awareness and like educating ourselves to like help support the trans community?
Yes. I love that question. Yes, definitely educating yourselves. I think I'd be happy to share more resources afterwards. Definitely fundraising, especially work to support trans people of color. I think it's about 1% of 1% of all philanthropy funds. So your donations will have a huge impact. There's a group, Trans Justice Funding Project, that I want to shout out because they get funds to places all over the country, to really rural grassroots groups. And you know, whatever your skills are, if you like to write letters, you know, look up Black and Pink or go to TGIJP mail nights. There's a million ways to contribute. If you're, whatever organization you work at, make sure your, you know, your HR policies are trans inclusive, and you know, basically just have trans people in your life. Like, that is what transforms my life, is having people who are really different from me, people who are incarcerated, people with different kinds of disabilities, people of color in my life. Like, who we have in the room is very important, and everything is guided by who we love.